Hey, what's going on YouTube? So we can definitely try to install the IRP short shifter in the 04 G35 Coupe. From my understanding, this short shifter is compatible with the 350Z and G35 platforms from 2003 to 2007. So with that being said, I gone ahead earlier and did an unpackaging to show you exactly what was in the package or what comes in the box, and definitely, to no surprise with all other parts that you get or you order, there was no instruction manual. So that's essentially the intent of this video, is to show you how to install this short shifter. You get the short shifter and a bunch of these little giveaways, lanyards, decals. Again, shout out to Drift headquarters or HQ for shipping me this part. So I'm gonna run over here into the car. So likewise, shift knob, OEM length 1, and the reason why I'm shifting it is to show you guys the actual travel length between each gear. And then reverse, obviously push down and then way down there. So as you guys can see, the first things first is you're gonna have to remove this bezel right here. So you can start off by removing the shift knob, and then all you do is, this is just clipped in, there's no screws holding this, so you literally just pop that out. For me, I have my gauges there, my boost gauge and my oil pressure gauge. So be mindful of all the wiring that's back here. Don't just rip it out, as you risk ruining any wire setups that you have. So there's the exposed shift boot. And I'm assuming that these are all 10mm bolts, just like every other bolt, or what feels like every other bolt in this car. And we're going to go ahead and remove the 4. So I've gone ahead and removed the 4 bolts. I just put the bolts right there so that I don't lose them. And as I was removing the 4 bolts, I looked over and realized there's a little baggie attached to the short shifter. And it seems like everything's been assembled onto the short shifter. But with the lack of instructions, dude, there's a bunch of random screws in here, bolts and washers, in which I have to now figure out on my own. So let me go ahead and remove this plate to expose. Ugh, it's all grimy. This plate comes out. Just gonna stick that over there. Remove that. I think this shift boot comes out also. Okay, so that's what you're gonna see. And I'm gonna remove those three bolts. Okay, so I've gone ahead and removed the 3 bolts. As you can see, I placed them over there to keep them separate from the 4 bolts over here. And as I was removing the last bolt, and you can see my hand kind of holding this plate, it seems like there's a spring, it's spring loaded. So I'm gonna release my hand. As you can see, it goes up and down. So I'm gonna remove this plate and just stick it over there and expose this whole piece here. Now, from my understanding, I'm gonna have to get underneath the car to get access this lower part, to access the shift link that's underneath, unless I could try to reach it with my hand. I really doubt I can reach it now. See, yep, I was definitely trying to avoid getting underneath my car, but I could feel that there's the pin that holds, basically, that goes through there. and I'm gonna have to get underneath the car for sure. Okay, so with the car jacked up, I now have two jacks, jack stands, and then the jack itself holding the car up. And essentially what I have is my headlamp, so I could essentially see what's holding on to that particular part underneath the shift boot. So let's see what we're working with underneath the fucking car. Okay, so it looks like, oh man, it literally looks like I have to go on the other side, damn it. So I basically jacked up the wrong side of the car. No, not necessarily. I could actually try to hit the other side. So it's looking like we have to get that bolt out. So I removed the bolt down there, and as you guys can see, the spring and the shifter is right there, pops straight up. So let me go ahead and remove that. Alright, so I'm back in the cabin of the car, and as I previously mentioned, I removed the actual spring and the shifter, the OEM shifter, and placed it out there somewhere. So I'm back in the cabin, and the other short shifter required you to remove this piece right here, this assembly. Now, to remove this assembly, it actually requires you to get back underneath the car, and apparently there's like a total of either 4 to 6 bolts holding this, in which you have to remove or drop your tranny to get this thing free. I honestly do not want to drop my tranny or even lower it just an inch or two so I could wiggle this out of its position. I don't have, the extra pair of hands to help me. So me doing this by myself, I'm hoping to God that that thing is a direct fit or direct insert without removing this. So let's see what happens. Here, I'll try to do it without pausing. So that piece is supposed to go into that hole and then pair up with the linkage down there. So if I'm unable to, okay, so it's through the hole. All the holes down there seem to line up, all 4. Now I have to get back underneath the car, reconnect the linkage to the actual shifter, and resume this video. So hopefully, I'm hoping that I do not have to remove that particular assembly, that bracket. Okay, so I've gone ahead and reconnect the shift link using that bolt that required the 12mm socket connected into the shifter. So now I'm going to assemble the 4 bolts, 1 here, 2, 3, 4, and try to get everything back into place. And you're probably wondering, well, what about those 3 bolts down there? That connected, if you remember, to the shift plate. So that is something that I have to figure out in the meantime. So let me go ahead and get these 4 bolts into place and see if I can shift into gear through all 6 gears. Okay, the original 4 mounting bolts from the OEM base plate for the shifter does not fit here. So putting back, the baggie contains 4 hex bolts with washer. So let me go ahead and get these installed here. Alright, so I've gone ahead and installed the 4 hex bolts. Now I already know that I need to make a notch right here so it allows the safety lockout to proceed back here. As I'm pressing the safety lockout switch, it's not engaging, it's not allowing it to go there. So I also noticed that the shift is shorter, but I cannot seem to go through all the gears. So that leaves me with one choice at the end of the day. See how I can go into 1, can't go into 2, go into 3, can't go into 4, and I think that's 6. I don't know. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a thing, it boils down to removing that one bracket that's below this plate, something that I was hoping that I didn't have to do. So let me go back to the drawing board. Alright, so this is where I'm at. I do remember a YouTube video with the guy who basically made his own short shifter out of a 3D printer, and I do recall that he did use a drill and a titanium bit to basically carve out that smaller square, and made the whole entire thing bigger so that it allowed his short shifter to go through all the gears. So essentially that's where I'm at. Honestly, I do not want to remove this piece, so hopefully this allows me to give it allows it to give more play, so I can or more room, so I can go through all my gears. So I'll let you guys see what the finished carve out here in a little bit. So here we are. I pretty much finished making the hole a lot bigger to accommodate for any travel space needed for the shifter. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean it up. A little bit of rough edges here and there, so clean them up, and then pretty much reinstall this back into there and see if that actually did anything. So here we go, guys. As you guys can see, I removed the center console, which consists of 2 screws located, one right here and then one over here, and then 2 back here. So as I mentioned earlier, I have to notch it, meaning here's the safety lockout switch, right, to allow it to go into reverse. I need to make a notch right there to account for that switch to travel into that particular part. So let me go ahead and notch that. Again, this is the center console. I have to make a notch right about here and account for what's under, which is all that. So we'll see. All right, it's roughly 5:53 p.m. About almost hitting the 5-hour mark in this whole entire short shifter install, but definitely got some breakthrough in regards to finally getting it into reverse. So with that being said, I had to do a lot of grinding. I mean, a lot of grinding, which consisted of a Dremel and a drill using titanium bits to essentially grind down this one specific part, which I'll show you here in a second, so that I can get into reverse. It is really required that you grind down or remove what's called the factory shifting assembly bracket, which obviously earlier I am not willing to do that because it's only me and I don't have access to another set of hands to drop the tranny so I could get those couple of inches to remove that factory shift assembly bracket. So I decided to just, you know, grind it out literally, and now I'm able to get into reverse. I'm able to get into 1 through 6 and then finally reverse. So with that being said, I'll show you the exact parts that I had to grind down, and then you know, essentially put everything back together as far as the bolts in reverse order, using the supplied bolts, of course, and then go from there. So here we go. I'm showing you where exactly I grinded down so I can get it into reverse, because if you do not grind these pieces down, then obviously you won't be able to get into reverse. So let me see, how can I do this? Okay, cool. So I grinded down right here, all this to the very edge. Basically, if I could have taken off more down here, I would have, but with the Dremel I was only limited. So basically I took half of all the way down to the edge of this whole entire lip, or what was originally that square piece with the metal plate. I literally took out half, so that's where it is. And then the next thing you're gonna do is obviously reinstall the part or the shifter. So that's pretty much in. I have to install the 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then show you guys the rest. But first things first, I have to get underneath the car to attach the linkage, the shift linkage, to the shift lever, which requires obviously that 12mm bolt that I took off earlier. So let me go underneath the car, get that connected, reinstall that protective boot covering that covers that assembly down there, and go from there. Okay, so just reinstalled the 12mm bolt. The bolt that required the 12mm socket down right underneath to the shift linkage, and now reinstall that rubber boot that protects that particular part. And now I installed the 4 bolts. Sorry about that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tighten them down, and then basically go through the motions showing you the difference. So let me tighten these down and show you the difference. Okay, so tighten down the 4 bolts, and I'll essentially show you the difference. There is a considerable difference in height, obviously, from the OEM shifter, and the intent and design of that, or purpose, is so that it's the distance between the actual shifter and the steering wheel is closer. Literally, yeah, it's closer. So here's the difference in shift distance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's very, very notchy. So 1, 2, and that's it. Very, very notchy. Notchy meaning you could really hear the clicking between each, and feel the clicking in each gear. So there you go. And I'm gonna put the interior back together tomorrow because I'm beat as hell. So this is where we are. I've tightened the 4 hex bolts, which most likely I will remove and throw in some Loctite here shortly. You've probably seen other videos or other products where this particular assembly is here towards the front. I think it was the something works, but for the IRP, the individual racing parts, this assembly is towards the rear, which, as you can see, the lockout will clear. I have to install the lockout pins, safety pins here. You know, of course, applying Loctite. Essentially, once that clears, you're able to go into gear, which It's weird because I'm unable to. Oh, duh. It was in freaking fourth. So as you can see, with the lockout pins, what it'll essentially do is it'll prevent you from going in reverse in the G35 350Z. One last thing I have to do is actually, notch. I notched this part, this trim down here. I actually now have to notch this trim right here. As you can see, I started doing it yesterday. It just got too dark. Which is basically the shift lever bezel, the bezel. So once that's done, I have to, re-secure the center console, and then give a overall impression / review. But here's a quick look at the shift distance. Again. So let me get on top of it. So I pretty much notched out the shift bezel right here to give it, this assembly part, enough room, enough clearance so that the bezel sits flush with this area. The next thing we're going to do, or you're going to have to do, is take out the lockout screws and then install them into the two holes there. So you're going to put the lever in first, insert the first lockout pin. Essentially, when you put it in first, you're bringing this part closer to the actual pin. Tighten. Of course, for the purpose of this video, I'm just showing this part. But once I stop recording, I'm actually going to remove the screws and add Loctite so these screws don't fall out on me when driving. Trying to remove the damn second. Oh shit, damn it, drop down there. Alright, I recovered it from falling down there. So for the left screw, you're gonna actually go into 6. You're gonna put the lever into 6. Oh fucking bitch. Hold on, what the fuck? Okay, so that's 6. Same thing, you're going to set the screw right, and then the bolt, once it's set, you're going to actually screw down or bolt these nuts down along the part here. So let me go ahead and add some Loctite and show you guys the finished setup. Alright, so here we are. I've gone ahead and sealed all 4 bolts with the lockout safety bolts sealed with blue Loctite. The reason why I decided to go with blue is just in case this gets changed later on in the future. It's not going to kill me trying to remove the bolts with the red Loctite. So I decided to go with blue, as it is vibration resistant, and you won't, you're not going to need to take a freaking blowtorch to remove this later. So this is where we are now. Everything goes clear through each gear, and then here's reverse, and as you can see, clears out the way. So there you go. Now I'm gonna reassemble the shift lever bezel and then secure the shift boot, and then pretty much clean everything up, resecure the bolts that I removed earlier for the center console, and yeah, basically clean everything up. So this is pretty much how it looks installed. Pretty much cleaned up. Shift boots back into place. Let me give you guys the another look at the distance.